Order. Our chair is joining us via Zoom today, so I'll run the meeting. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Individuals have up to 3 minutes to provide public comment, but nobody has signed up today, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. There are a few items on the consent agenda. These are very minimal changes, and so we don't need to approve them individually. If there is no objection, we can approve all of them at once. Okay, no objection. Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to financials, and I'll turn it over to leadership.
All right. We are with the March numbers. We are at halfway through the fiscal year. So we're 6 months in officially from what you have in front of you. And both Emma and I are here to answer any questions that you might have. I will do my best to answer them in real time.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Nick and Emma, I just saw add one question. I saw that there was a $20,000 charge for a water softener system at Pinnacle. I'd like a little bit more information on that and what drove that and just a little more data on it.
Yes, Trustee Cummings. That is due to extremely hard water out in that part of Meridian. Some of the bathroom sinks are non-working because of the water. And so we have to drastically change the water before it gets into our system to keep it from clogging up. And so we had to get a large commercial grade water softener, and it is functional as of today. And some of the parts of the sinks will be swapped out so that we can reopen one of the bathrooms that had been closed for the past 2 months. So while we still had working bathrooms, we had at least one down at a time due to the water issues. And so the softener was brought in to try and alleviate that issue.
Any other questions or comments from the trustees? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the March 2026 financial reports.
Mr. Chair, or Mrs. Chair in this case? No.
Trustee Castle.
I would move to approve the March 2026 financial report.
I second.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any comment? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the disbursement approvals for March 26?
Madam Chair,
Trustee Castle.
I move to approve the disbursements for March 26th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any comment? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Move on to item number 5 is job descriptions. Turn it over to Nick.
Yeah. So the 3 job descriptions that you have in front of you are reclassifications of some current positions. And one of them was previously, or 2 of the supervisor ones had been branch supervisors that had been moved over to the district resources and material services teams. And as we've evaluated over the last 8 months, we've determined these are the best position changes for those supervisors to be able to provide us with long-term and short-term benefits to the district. And then the district circulation specialist is a reclassification of a resource specialist in the material services team that will have a lot more focus on home delivery and continuing to provide support in the material services department. So happy to answer any specific questions, but that's kind of the gist of the 3 of those.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions or comments from the trustees?
Madam Chair, Director Grove. With the addition of the district circulation supervisor and district resources supervisor, how many FTE do we now have?
I'm not sure. This doesn't change the FTE
You don't memorize?
amount. I can tell you in a matter of minutes. But I will say it doesn't add anything. It since it's just a reassignment of people. And it looks like we are at just over 78 FTE currently.
Thank you.
I should say 78 FTE, meaning equivalent, so that isn't the number of people. We have about 94 people with the 78 FTE.
Do we have any other comment or questions for Nick? Okay, we will address these. Did you have them? Okay. We'll address these one by one. Is there a motion on district circulation supervisor job description?
I move that we approve the district circulation supervisor job description.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to district circulation specialist job description.
I move that we approve the district circulation specialist job description.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that one? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. And district resources supervisor job description.
I move that we approve the district resources supervisor job description.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 6, policy reviews for the service charge policy. I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you. It on the agenda it says service change policy. It was just a slight typo from the R to the N, or N to the R, I should say. And so the service charge policy right before you. If it weren't involving money, it would have gone in consent. The reason it's going up, there's rising costs, but it also has to do with our system and how we give away the 3 free prints each day, and the confusion that it creates for some members of the public that want their nickel, and it creates an unnecessary tension point at the front desk for our staff. And so this will alleviate that without changing how many free prints people are able to get. So they'll be able to get the 3 black and white or the 1 color, and there is no tension point for what they think is an extra nickel that they're owed, despite it not being that way. So
Okay, trustees have comment or questions for Nick?
I just have a comment, Madam Chair, Director Grove. The copy charge is very similar to what I paid for copies in college a long time ago. So it's still a great deal.
Madam Chair, I don't know if I'd ever really read through this that much, at least until it's kind of put forward to me. One thing that I found interesting about this was the non-residential library card. This probably belongs as a future agenda item, but I'd like to know more of like who purchases those, if anyone, right? Just because it seems kind of an interesting thing to say to someone, here, you could use the library for $140, or if you're here, it's free. It makes sense if you're here, it's free, but I don't know who my target audience would be for a $140 library card, right? So
I'd be happy to answer that. This is a number that had been pretty static over the years. When we looked at the numbers, it was really hard to justify it being at $65 when the average of a home in Meridian was paying a much higher rate than that. And so we took averages for our district, looking at the assessor's website, getting that and putting a number to what that out of district card would be. So there are places in the valley that aren't served by a library district, a library, or a public library. And so those people can choose to get a library card through us. They could go to any library, but one of the differences of the Meridian Library versus one of the smaller libraries is our digital collection. So a lot of out of district patrons who do end up getting our library card are getting it for the digital collection primarily. That's not to say that's the only reason, but that is a primary reason that people would get an out of district card. And so if they're going to be here for an extended stay, if they live in Garden Valley, there's reasons that some people will do it. I will say our numbers are very, very low on that, especially once that price change went into 3-4 years ago. And there are lower rate options if you're only interested in physical books, that you could go to one of the libraries that hasn't adjusted theirs to market rate. And you'd still have access to all the physical materials. So if that's your only want, then there are lower cost options for a person that is interested in that service.
Thank you, Director Grove.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Nick? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion on the service charge policy?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the service change policy as written.
Service charge.
Service charge.
Service charge policy as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the service charge policy. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 7, salary schedule, and turn it over to Nick again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as we see routinely throughout the year, as job descriptions and titles change, this is the salary schedule to simply include the titles that are in there in the salary schedule. There are no changes to any of the pay rates. Pretty simple update. The only reason we don't put these on consent agenda is because we don't want something approved where the job descriptions have not yet been approved.
That makes sense. Thank you, Nick. Any discussion? Okay, we'll entertain a motion on the salary schedule.
I move that we approve the salary schedule.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further comment? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. We'll give Nick the floor again for director updates.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will keep my updates fairly brief, and I hand it over to Vasile for some of the more interesting branch updates. But hopefully you had a chance to read through the director's report. There's a lot of good information in there from across the district. So I will just touch on the big piece, which is our Cherry Lane renovation. We're making a lot of good progress. Here is photos from the large program room. In there, you can see the pitched ceiling in there, and the patio space that will be an extension of both the program room and then also for staff from the staff exit on that side of the building. This is the main entrance on the east side of the building that has been built out. They're making a lot of good progress on that. And so this will be the new main entrance because of the reconfiguration of both the building and the parking lot. And this will also be the 24-hour hold space as well. This is one right inside the picture on the left is right when you walk inside that new main entrance. This will be kind of looking, there's an orange box where that's right past that is the pillar where the circulation desk will be. So there will be one service point, and you'll be able to see most of the building from there. And so you're starting to see all of it start to take shape. And then the main entrance or the former main entrance on the south side of the building, it's a little hard to see, but there are black bars that are up there right now. Those are going to hold the green wall that will go up and provide a semi shield of that space to make it so that it doesn't look inviting from a walk up and use this entrance standpoint. It was more cost effective than trying to redesign that entire space. And so making use of what is already there and providing a little bit of color and greenery and a little bit of uniqueness to that space. And yeah, I think last thing I'd say is we made some decisions on floors and roofs, which aren't in themselves all that interesting necessarily, but they are difficult decisions to make, and we're really looking forward to how it's going to make the whole project feel when people come visit. So I'll hand it over to Vasile.
Thank you, Nick. Madam Chair, trustees, just wanted to touch on some high points during the month of April. So expanding community outreach. We have some fun numbers here. Not everything is a number, but our K-Reg generated more than 860 interactions with students and families. Staff were all over Meridian engaging with folks, so that's always great. Our outdoor story times engaged more than 80 children and caregivers. We're all over the place doing outdoor story times, so that's been great with the nicer weather lately. And I think the biggest number I'll present to you guys today, which I'm very pleased with, is our first month of Bookmobile welcomed over 1,137 visitors with all of the new stops that we implemented. So it's I don't know the specifics, but we engaged with more people in the Bookmobile than we did at Tiny this last month. So that is big news to us and really showing that we need to double down and continue the great work we're doing with the Bookmobile. Unbound, like always, is doing a great job with workforce and business outreach, engaging entrepreneur students. We're back to doing, I think we were doing it last month as well, but doing our, forgive me, I forgot, our program with formerly incarcerated individuals. So Tech for Reentry is what that's called. So that's been very successful. Next slide, please. And then just continuing innovation, creativity, and lifelong learning. We had over 470 attendees throughout the district in our STEAM, maker, and technology programs. Still high demand at Unbound for 3D printing, CNC basics, Cricut, Tinkercad, and STEAM labs. So that's beyond Unbound as well. We've started doing some of those at our traditional branches, a lot of our STEAM labs, some Cricut things that are not as, that don't have such a high entry level, and that could be, easily taught at our traditional branches. There was obviously a need, and Unbound couldn't meet that need to everyone in the community. So we branched out, and now Pinnacle and Orchard Park are doing some intro to 3D printing, some Cricut, some of those other things. And the numbers are showing that folks are interested in attending those programs beyond Unbound. As we move into spring, Pinnacle did a plant and seed swap, which was really cool. That was over 44 attendees, and they got University of Idaho Extension Master Gardeners to attend. So, individuals who could really teach folks how to plant their seeds and grow gardens. So that was really cool. And then two really cool events that took place, Boise Philharmonic and Dia de los Niños took place, and that both had really high turnouts to a total of 630 community members. So some really good numbers, a lot of engagement. Folks are really coming to the library, and we're on program break right now, but as we move into June, we're going to pick up our summer programs. We're going to be doing a lot of large scale programs. So I'm really looking forward to, for those beyond the building, getting crazy numbers, for those within the building, meeting capacity, not exceeding it. So April is definitely a fun month. That's it for me.
Do we have any comments or questions from the trustees?
Madam Chair,
Trustee Newton?
I was at the Middle School Idaho Battle of the Books competition, and the Meridian Library District team took second place, and it was really amazing and fun to watch all the kids compete and hear John Shue talk to kids. It was really inspiring. So that was probably my favorite event in all of April, just like in general. So.
My fourth grader also participated in Idaho Battle of the Books, and she loved it, and she had the best team, and they didn't win, but they learned a lot, and it was I think her favorite thing of the school year. So big fun. Trustee Castle?
Madam Chair, first question is, I think maybe for Facile or Director. We looked at all into any kind of, I'm thinking of like AI coding or anything along these lines. I know that's been something that's been coming up in the technology side.
Trustee Castle. Yes, I'm on. Trustee Castle, we Unbound has done coding programs during the summer for teenagers over the last few years. As far as AI coding, we have not done AI and coding together. We've done AI programs for members of our community, both teen and adult. But AI coding is definitely something we could explore in the future.
Just something to think about. Definitely in my industry, it's become more popular and does seem to be fairly effective. So.
Absolutely.
One more item, Madam Chair. I just want to kind of express a thank you to those who are still in the Cherry Branch, or those who may have found a different home as you stayed with Meridian Library District. I know that we're continuing along the line of getting to a library, and maybe it may sometimes feel like you don't have a home, but I really appreciate you having the gumption to stay with us. And I just kind of wanted to express that, because I know sometimes it can feel like a long slog to go through this long of a renovation, but I promise it's going to be useful and beneficial to the public. And I wanted to express that thank you to that group in particular.
Thank you, Trustee Castle. I'll pass that along to the Cherry Lane team for those who didn't watch tonight or that aren't here. We have Nikki here. She's from Cherry Lane.
Thank you. Any other comment or discussion?
Madam Chair, just a comment for anyone that doesn't know, summer reading kickoff tomorrow, Settlers Park, 4 p.m. Be there, be square.
I will add to that, because I actually had some pieces to hand out to you while we're sitting here. So thank you for reminding me. So those are for you guys. Actually, I take one. So these are the program brochures for the summer. We get started with programs officially June 1st for this quarter. Basile has his picture in there. He wrote a little bit. So we redid these. I think I mentioned that we traditionally buy 2,000 brochures, but we were able to make the brochure smaller and buy in bulk. So we went from 2,000 to 10,000, and it was barely double the price of printing. And a lot of that is able to be offset by our sponsors. So we have several sponsors. You'll see those in the middle of the booklet, and then also on a lot of our other marketing for summer reading. And I think we did $25,000 in sponsorship. I'm kind of looking at Emma for that.
Madam Chair, Director Grove, the sponsors were outlined in the finance report.
So we're really excited about that. We redesigned the brochure to make it hopefully more usable for people to find what they're looking for different age groups, different interests. Still a work in progress, but we're trying to look at how can we make things easier for people to get involved with the library. And then with the summer reading program itself, we have some I only have one of these, but these will be handed out tomorrow. explain the summer reading program. But in a nutshell, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using these bookmarks right here. I'll pass one down. So once you get signed up, you'll get a bookmark, and there's bookmarks for adults, there's bookmarks for teens, and there's bookmarks for 0 to elementary school. And it's really simple. We try to simplify it as much as possible. You get to set what your goal is for a daily goal. That can be reading 10 pages. That can be reading for 2 hours. It can be reading two chapter books. Whatever your personal daily goal is, you get to write that on here. And then as you complete that, that day, you get to mark it off. Once you've completed 10 days, bring it in, you get a prize. If you're an adult or a teen, you get entered into raffle prizes. But it's really cool. You get a free book at the beginning and a free book at the end. And so we have thousands upon thousands of books that have been ordered to be able to get as many books into people's hands throughout the summer for them to be able to keep. And we simplified this so that it's really easy to keep track of what you're supposed to do and when, and kind of bite-size this rather than giving it to everybody all at once. I know for my family, we will get a log to track everything for the beginning of summer, and it has everything, and we will lose it within an hour. So having something that is a little harder to lose, and if we do lose it, it's easy to replace, is a great option. And it also gives, especially kids, ownership over the program rather than having it on an app that's on their parents' device, or having it, be a little more ephemeral in how to track, trying to make it tactile. And then when they come into a branch, they will be able to stamp their bookmarks. So each bookmark is colored. So the blue one, so once you complete book one, you'll be able to stamp it, and then we'll keep that tracked in the district. And then if you don't want to do it on paper and you're traveling and whatnot, or if you're just a digital only family, you have the option of using the Beanstack app that we've used for years. But it's all the exact same process regardless of how you interact with the program. So trying to lower the barriers to get more people to be involved. We would really like to reach as many of the 150,000 people in our community as possible. And so this is our biggest marketing opportunity, our biggest program time, our biggest expense time from a lot of our collections. Not as much. They're busy, but it's not necessarily busiest. But from a program standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, this is our, and from a foot traffic standpoint, summer is our biggest and busiest time. And so really leaning into that and trying to maximize our visibility and our outreach to the community, so that we have nothing that stands, taking as few or as many barriers as we can to get people to use the library and encourage them to read, regardless of if they're using us or not.
Madam Chair, Director Grove, I just appreciate this so much because I know there's a push from a lot of families to limit the digital interaction that children have, and I think that's really important that we recognize and are meeting this need. So thank you for that. I'm really excited to see what the ratio of Beanstack use to like physical tracking will be.
And we will have a lot of that data probably September would be my guess, when we've been able to collate and decipher some of that information once we close out at the beginning of August.
Any other comments or questions for the director? Okay. We're going to move on to item number 9, which is a discussion about long-term branch planning.
Madam Chair.
Trustee Kohler?
Thanks, everybody. Trustees, I put this on the agenda and just wanted to put it out there to have an informal discussion tonight. There's no action required, but included an article that was in the Statesman recently. You may have seen some of these pieces in the city of Boise and the Boise Public Library, where there's some community feedback calling for additional branches to serve the city of Boise. In our district, of course, we've had the privilege the last several years of expanding services through Orchard Park and Pinnacle to some of the faster growing parts of our community. However, Meridian continues to grow just as Boise continues to grow. And so I would anticipate in the years ahead, we will start to see a similar call from our district residents for an expansion of library services as well. As you probably all know, there are some legal restraints to how fast we can grow, how fast we can increase our operating expenses. And so even if we had land and capital dollars to construct a new branch, there would still be a challenge to staffing that branch. And perhaps Nick can talk more about that if you have questions about that. He does a good job of explaining it. But I mainly wanted to throw it out there so that we don't lose sight as a board that in the years ahead, we can't continually rest on our laurels with the new branches, that at some point we're probably going to need to talk about an expansion of additional services in the future. And when the time is right, perhaps when the levy runs out, we can start that discussion. But I'd be happy to just hear people's informal thoughts tonight on the subject. And if Director Grove has any thoughts on the matter, I'd like to hear those too.
I might start with questions so that I know how to direct my responses a little bit more.
Sorry, I put you on the spot, Nick.
It's just such a big, broad
Yeah,
topic.
it is.
I'd rather maybe try my best to answer the questions that you have rather than I could talk about this for hours in terms of methodology and all of that. We will be having a master facility comprehensive plan that we're outlining and hopefully have done by the end of the calendar year that will address some of these issues. It's a big, complex piece. I would say the biggest thing to really know is the operating cost of a facility. Even if someone were to donate us $20 million to build a new branch right now, we would not be able to open it because of how much it costs to run that building. We need at least $1 million of additional operating funds per year to be able to staff that building. That's not even including the cost of utilities, the cost of books, the cost of supplies, the cost of services and things like that to the building. So just in terms of personnel alone, we're looking at $1 million. Now, when you extrapolate that out over a number of years, you're and looking at how things go up over time, by the time we actually get to that point, you're probably wanting to budget closer to $1.5 million just for personnel. You're looking at an additional $500,000 to $1 million to operate the building efficiently. Especially if we're looking 5 years out. So those are more the ongoing costs. The one-time costs are actually somewhat easier to come by than the operating cost. Like, do I have a way to get us 20 million? I do not, but I would feel a lot more confident in getting that one-time money and then getting that ongoing money, just because there's nothing we can do to change that ongoing money. There's no matter how hard we work, we can't make that go up any faster than what we're legislatively allowed to go up. And so that's going to be our breaking point for any new facilities over time, is not the one-time cost of building a building. It's going to be the cost of staffing and operational costs.
Thank you, Nick. Trustee Knudsen?
Madam Chair, Director Grove, my wonders are, where are our current projected needs? In terms of, as we finish up Cherry, we've been really good financially with how we are using our finances. And ultimately, I imagine land is only going to get more and more expensive. So wondering, is there a way to project out where our needs are and then start looking at how we might be able to purchase even land. I mean, we might, or even how it, like, is there a way to get it donated? I mean, we it's just going to get more and more expensive. So those are my two big wonders.
The short answer is yes, we do. We need to establish where our long-term needs are and determine what path forward we want to try and approach. The approach that has been most beneficial to us is actually not doing what has traditionally been done with political subdivisions in the past, which is purchase land, sit on it, and then build. Our model that has worked over the last few years, I would say only the way that we've done over the last few years is actually in partnership with developers and being a part of a larger project that they are working on. They see value in it. We see value in it. And it gives us opportunities to build out faster and also not go alone. And so I think if given the option, I prefer working with a developer on a larger project, even if it is a standalone building, working with them on a larger concept of a large build out versus buying land, sitting on it, and then finding a way to build on it. And there's a lot of reasons why, but the biggest one is upfront capital to do land and then build. The best way to do that is to have all of the money up front. And the only way that we can really have money up front to do that is to wait out the entirety of a plant facility levy, which would be 10 years, to do COP financing on a plant facility levy that is doable, but other pieces. But the best way to do barren land and then build your own is to do a bond, and bonds just have an atrocious pass rate in Idaho with the supermajority threshold. And so I don't foresee us going that route anytime soon, unless there's a legislative change or a massive electorate change. I don't think that going the bond route will be beneficial to us in any way. So I won't advocate for that in the future. A plant facility levy, I will very much advocate for when the time is right, but we're not there yet.
Nick, you mentioned the comprehensive plan. Remind me when you said that would be complete.
Our goal is to complete a facility comprehensive plan by the end of the calendar year. It might be an ambitious goal, but that is our goal, is to have that finished by the end of the calendar year.
And that will address some of the expansion.
It'll address all of our current facilities and the long-term needs of those buildings. When do we need to replace roofs? When do we need to replace water heaters? When do we need to replace floors? Maintenance, replacements, expansions, things of that nature for our existing buildings. But it'll also help us address where our long-term needs are from a population standpoint. Where are we seeing growth? Where is, not only us, but where is Compass, the regional planning agency for this area? Where are they projecting growth? What does that growth look like? How do we then take what we can do budgetarily with our 3% on base, 8% max, but from 386 to go up in our budget based on growth? How do we project that out? How do we predict that those monies be used? How do we start, doing big bucket money planning in terms of, okay, we can put this much away for this long, it's going to do this. And being able to plan out, okay, well, we believe we're going to continue to use the bookmobile. Okay, well, when does it need to be replaced? Okay, we can probably make it stretch to here. How much is it going to cost? Okay, it's going to cost $750 to $1.25 million to replace. Okay, let's make sure that we have that in the budget. Okay, now we need to plan to do a plant facility levy rollout. Here's how that works. Here's the timeline. Here's the anticipated needs and how that would function. So it'll start to lay out a lot of those pieces for the future. And some of it might not be in detail, but it'll at least be an outline in terms of when to take next steps.
I think for me, having that data would be important to having a good discussion about expansion. And then I know there are some, I don't know if they're best practices, but so much library per population. There are some numbers there that I think would be interesting to look at, so we can kind of see what we're looking at going forward and discuss from there.
Yes, there are industry standards for, it's essentially what it used to be. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it used to be 1 square foot per person that you serve. So we would be looking at right now 150,000 square feet. We are nowhere close to that. I think we're doing the math in my head really quick, but we're at like 60,000 square feet with our all of our branches. If we had Cherry Lane open right now, right? And so we won't be able to hit that number. We just can't hit that number anytime, probably in my tenure. So how do we get more creative? I think that's where we look at the things that we are doing that are kind of out of the box. How do we make use of the bookmobile in so many different stops? How do we do home delivery? How do we do senior care facilities? How do we do daycares and childcare facilities? How do we do school visits? How do we do these things? How do we partner? How do we make more use of community space and mobile spaces where we can't necessarily get the square footage?
Madam Chair.
Trustee Castle.
First off, I want to commend Jeff for being so forward thinking. We haven't finished a current library yet, and he's already thinking of so far down the road. What a guy, right? But my initial reactions to this is I've actually sometimes spent some time talking to some of the people who are part of the Boise side of the story, where they say, hey, this area is a library desert, and some of this story here. And in general, the concept goes, if you look at a map, you can see in the map that the library is not in this area and it's a high population area, right? So I do like this view of thinking about a place is going to grow. Can we ensure that, we have forward-looking planning to do it? I think on the side of per square footage, it's an interesting question, because I don't know if I find anyone being like, I don't have a big enough library near me. I think most people go, I want a place for my kid to do XYZ program, for, me to be able to browse or view, right? And this kind of stuff. And so I do find myself on the knee-jerk reactions more of that. It's not that size doesn't matter, it's that location matters more, is I think what I would find from the responses that I've heard along the trail. So one thing I wanted to ask about just along these discussions is, are we, and I don't know if this is even evidence, and I don't know if you should comment to this, but are we just doing maybe a better job or a worse job in comparison to our, what I'm going to call just the outreach programs, right? We have a bookmobile. We are able to reach a great more, amount of people through that. Great, awesome. I have no idea if Boise has bookmobile. I have no idea if Beta Free does, right? So that would be helpful, is the comparative of these other things that help service a library district, knowing how we stack up against maybe other similar areas. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a direct comparative to Boise. You can pick places that are far away to make it indifferent, right? But I just wanted to think if we're hitting above our punches, or if we're not, right?
I think, Trustee Castle, that those are great questions. I don't think that we're going to find happy answers, in the sense that there is no comparison. We can find what our neighbors are doing, but they're going to be in a completely different boat than us. We can find cities that are comparable size, but their funding structures are going to be massively different than ours. So we can make some of those comparison pieces, but each community is so geographically different, population, demographics different, funding different, that, you know, if you get outside of Idaho, you have different ways to fund than what we have. You don't have some of the barriers that we have here. When you go to Boise, you know, you have a city that's been established at a size that's more similar to what it is currently than what we are at. And so they've had time to build that up. And they're also a part of a city and not a standalone district. So I think while we can make some of those comparisons, there's a lot of bad comparison when we try to like make an apples to apples comparison to what we're doing versus what they're doing. You know, Boise had a bookmobile years and years ago, but they went away from it to open branches. You know, that's something we have talked about for a long time also, but you know, you have to look at what's the reality of our geographics. How do we make the most of what we have? I know looking at the Boise maps and whatnot, there is a library desert when you go 1 mile, 2 mile, but when you hit 3 mile, they're the most served area. And so it also comes down to what is your criteria, right? So, and in Meridian, more so than Boise, we're a much more commuter based city. So what is our threshold of being close, right? Is it 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, 4 mile? What is that number? I don't know, but I think, you know, Ada, they're geographically, they're really spread out, right? They are up in Hidden Springs, Star, and then they got two really close off of 5 Mile and Victory and then 5 Mile and Lake Hazel. And so they have a different piece to look at. Nampa went the other direction, and they went, we're just going to make one big library in the center of town, and that's going to be everything that we have for the most part. And so it's hard to say, you know, what's right, what's wrong. It's what is best for our community, I think, is probably the better metric to go by, is how do we do what the best we can to serve our population today and tomorrow, and not really get into the comparison piece. It's more, what can we do with what we have? What do we need to have to do better going forward, rather than trying to look at our neighbors or even our quote unquote cohort libraries across the country. Because like I said, so much difference goes into each of those scenarios that we can have some comparison, but it's really, we're not competing with anyone other than ourselves. We're not in a market where we have to dominate against a competitor. We're trying to do the best to serve our community. And so our only competition is what we've done before and what we need to do going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair.
Trustee Cummings.
Very well said, Director Grove. That was on point, and it brings up a couple of things I wanted to get on the record. First of all, thanks to Jeff for making this a discussion item and for including that article, which was kind of eye-opening. I'm reminded that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We didn't get here of our own merits. We are here entrusted with this district, which has done a fantastic job. And that's reflected in the pride that the community has in the library district. And they voted with their pocketbooks. I mean, nothing tells you more about what a person values and where they put their money. The fact that they approved the plant facilities levy speaks highly. The fact that per capita, you know, we're looking at a budget of 10 to 12 million a year for 150,000, including children. The city of Boise is twice the size, and they don't have twice the budget. So clearly Meridian values libraries. You look at a map and the district is split right down the middle, just about, with 3 fantastic facilities. Tiny supplements it, Bookmobile supplements it. And I think that is fantastic. We also have an ace up our sleeve for any poker players. The Spanish Sun facility, that plot of land, 3.5 acres, is a huge tool that can be leveraged down the road. It's in the path of progress. And if you look at on OnX maps, just the rooftops, where the community lives in our district, there's this huge gap down in the southwest. Guess where development's going to be? Probably the last place that they can go. We had, geographic boundaries with the river. We have societal lines of communication with, bounding us on the east side. There's only, word is out. People are coming to Meridian. We all know that. It's growing by leaps and bounds, and it is going in a very good direction, I think. And it's our job to not screw it up. So I think we've done a great job. In that article, there was one thing that kind of made me laugh. The Boise City Council, when chatting with their library director, said, hey, how about we partner and build a West Boise library to service this desert and partner with our neighbors to the west. I would like it very widely known that Meridian Library District is an independent taxing authority, and we will not spend one nickel to build a library branch that is not within the bounds of our district. Our residents pay taxes. We're entrusted with those monies, and I am all for not spending one nickel to build a facility in West Boise. They've got their own district. If they want it and the voters want it, they need to vote in the people that are going to prioritize that in the city council. Now, I am all for being a part of the Links Network, partnering with them strategically and through the tactical execution of our shared mission. But when it comes to things like building new libraries that have inflated price tags, whether it's 100 million or 40 million, it doesn't matter. If it's not in our district, not one nickel of Meridian Library funds should go towards that. I just wanted to get that on record. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Josh. And Nick, to your earlier point, I think getting creative with just having a presence in different parts of Meridian feels like the right answer. And I trust, just given leadership's creativity in like every other way, when it comes to the library and serving taxpayers, that'll be front of mind for you going forward. And so when there is an opportunity to partner, to embed ourselves in certain parts of the community where we maybe don't have a presence, I know that you will pursue that and bring us the best options. So I think going forward for me, I think just getting creative and finding out who we can partner with and maybe where we're missing a presence, and then just letting staff know to kind of be on the lookout for creative solutions is the answer. Laura?
Madam Chair, Director Grove, to your point, Trustee Hart and to Nick's point, it sounds like we this conversation is just beginning. Once we have the comprehensive facilities plan, we'll have more information that we can ask more pointed questions on. And then one of the things that I've always liked is we see this like with Tiny. We have a need, we have a creative way to fill the need. So in terms of maybe not comparing us to other districts, but seeing what other library communities are doing to meet their needs. And if we could take an idea and jump off of that, that would be a great idea. So once we have that information, I think I look forward to it.
Madam Chair, a couple of additional thoughts. One, I think we're in a position that a lot of people would envy in terms of where we're at planning fiscally, all of these things. But some of the things that we've done that are above and beyond most public library systems across the country. We have Unbound, which is a completely unique piece for our community, and furthers our connection to the business community and the entrepreneur community, right? We also have our admin warehouse, which allows us to provide an additional 55,000 books without increasing the cost staffing wise to a level that a branch would take. We can operate that facility with much fewer people. I think, when we really get down to brass tacks, it's 3 part-time pages that are really making it so that we can keep the books on the shelf or can get them off the shelf, right? Along with the help from material services and a few other people in admin. But then we have our home delivery service, which is just a completely different take on providing materials to people in the community that not very many, if any, libraries are doing it the way that we're doing it. And the return on investment from a cost to book ratio is phenomenal. When we look at Tiny's numbers, I think I just saw it. We had 325 visits in April versus the 1,100 visits or 1,300 visits or whatever it was for the bookmobile. And for home delivery, we're averaging 50, 60 households per day. Right? So the cost value, like we look at all of those pieces, and I think we've already gotten really creative. And I think we will always continue to look at how can we do more with what's out there? How can we adapt what someone else has done? But so much of what we're already doing is above and beyond what other places are doing. So in a lot of ways, we're continuing to kind of lead the charge on some of these things. And I think we continue to do that. We look at what other libraries are doing. We look at what other community assets are doing across the country. And we try to adapt it to meet our community versus copying it. I think a lot of libraries getting to a jam when they try to copy versus adapt. And so that's something that I will never allow us to do, is to just copy something because it looks cool. It needs to be adapted to fit us and our community. And not just because it's cool, but because it moves the needle. So those were my final thoughts.
Thank you, Nick. Chair Kohler, did you have any discussion points for long-term branch planning?
No, I sure appreciated hearing everybody's thoughts. It's been a good discussion, and I'm glad that we're able to talk things out even without the ability to make any decisions anytime soon. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And it sounds like we're all on the same page as far as just really kind of needing to see that data that'll be included in the comprehensive plan to move the discussion forward in any significant way. And then also encouraging MLD leadership to just keep a creative lens on and let us know if anything comes up. Perfect. Okay. Well, our next agenda item is future agenda items. If anybody has anything they'd like to add. Trustee Castle, I think we addressed your non-resident library card question, or did you want to add?
No. The only other thing I would add is I believe that we put a discussion item for Leisure Lane next time. So the main intention here is that I just really think about the view of, if you've got land and you can't use it, you're laying it fallow and it's a risk to you, right? So I think it's worth the board considering this again on what we could possibly think to do with it. So yeah. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to come back to, I believe we had talked about that last time, and not having that conversation until more of the work was done on Leisure Lane and with the parking lot and everything. So I don't know if next month would be my recommendation. I would say much further into the fall would be a more apropos time to have that conversation.
Thank you, Nick. I think my main concern just goes along the lines of if this is an area that is in any way, shape, or form affecting how we're building, which it does sound like it is, then it's worth it for us to have the conversation so that we can definitively say, even if we can't deal with this by the time the Cherry Branch Lane is open, we have some type of plan, strategy, or something like that. I think one of my biggest concerns just is the world of you've got this area. We've never really established what occurs for maintenance or what occurs if someone had a wreck or someone had an issue here, right? Which I think just keeps us at a risk point, right? And I don't want that part to get forgotten because we said, well, this is hard, right? I want us to say, oh, well, actually, this is kind of how that should play. So I think one thing that would just ease my view goes along the lines of like, okay, if we're not maintaining it, do we have any context of if we're still at risk if something occurs because we're not maintaining the area?
Nick, can I confirm there's no substantial change to the way that we're using that or the way that that street is being used, and there won't be until further along in the construction process. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that is largely correct. We have work that will be done along that as part of the build out of the parking lot and the landscaping that will follow the parking lot and the west side of Leisure Lane. No matter what discussions we come up with or decisions that we make about it is going to have any material change on the project whatsoever. And so
we
it's
really
an
need to
interesting
see-
conversation, but it will largely not have any impact on anything that is at hand currently or even in the short term. So happy to have the conversation, but there's not a lot that can move anything that we're doing or going to be able to do.
So, Madam Chair, this question relates for Trustee Garrett Castle. Sorry, Trustee Castle. My wonder is, are you wanting more of a comprehensive understanding of where we are with Leisure Lane and what our liabilities are and our responsibilities are versus what we can do to possibly impact that, or do you just need a foundation?
I think it's the liabilities piece, right? Because it's the presentation that we were kind of given did a good job of clarifying that this is maybe not the most clearest world, right? But in the unclear world, okay, are we still in some way, shape, or form liable in the instance of we don't maintain this, we don't do anything with it, right? And if the answer is yes, then that puts a fire under us a little bit to be like, oh, we do need to actually clarify the standing of this piece. And if the answer is no, then that takes us a little bit the other way where we can say, well, it's interesting, not really material. So.
Madam Chair, again, I would urge us to have the conversation once the road work is done. We'll have a much clearer picture on what we're discussing. I don't think it's appropriate to have that conversation until we see the status of the finished product.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. My understanding too is that we're just as liable as we've ever been, but not any more liable at this point. So we can kind of keep things status quo until we know a little bit better what that's going to look like.
I can accept this as a response.
Okay. So we will plan to just put that on the agenda in the fall at earliest when we have a better picture. Any other agenda items from the trustees?
Madam Chair, I will say the June meeting is your annual meeting. And so there will be a lot of annual meeting pieces. So annual review of like the trustee job description and trustee bylaws and things of that nature. Election of officers. Those tasks will be done in June. So just as a reminder of what is upcoming.
Okay. So June's a big one. As always, you can reach out to Nick or Chair Kohler with agenda items, but think very carefully about that because June's already going to be a long meeting. Okay, if there's no other business, it is 8:04 p.m. and meeting is adjourned.